Hi, I'm going to show you how to work with your postcard files in Illustrator. So this particular video is going to focus on artboards, palettes, layers, and tools. So let's get started. First things first, when you open your file, you're going to see one side of your postcard. And that's because the other side is in a completely different layer. That's just the way that I set it up. This is your layer palette right here. This is a palette that you're going to work with most often when you're working with this postcard, along with your paragraph palette and your character palette, but I'll show you all that in a minute. So you can switch between the front and the back of the postcard in your layer palette by simply showing and hiding the front and the back. So the eyeball indicates that it's being shown. So this is the back of your postcard. And if I deselect that eyeball, it hides. And if I show it here, and then it shows the front of the postcard. So I'm going to show you how to control what palettes show out here. And that's being controlled up here in Window. So under Window, you can see your Layers palette is selected. So if you ever come in to edit your file and you don't have a Layers palette, it's not there. All you have to do is go up to Window and choose Layers, and there it is. You can also move around and dock your palettes that you use most often to make it easier to work with your file. So just as a for instance, the way that I would set this up is I'm not crazy about the color palette because I don't use it, so I'll deselect that. I like the paragraph one. I like the layers one. And another one I like is, let's see, type and character. I like that one. So these are just kind of taking up a lot of space over here. So a cool thing that you can do is you can move these and dock these into different positions. So what I like to do is have my layers one front and center, and then I'll take my paragraph one and I'll move that right in here next to layers. So all you do is just grab that tab and move it over. So character one I'll put here. So now here's my 3 favorite palettes, and I just keep those right out there. What you can do too is under Window, you can take your workspace and you can save your workspace. So under New Workspace, you can name your workspace whatever you want. So I'll just name mine Joe and hit OK. So now next time I come in here, if I want to choose this workspace quickly, all I do is go under Workspace and just make sure Joe is selected, and it will automatically put my palettes where I want them. So again, layers is the one you're going to work with most often, and this is where you show different aspects of your card. So just for instance, if the back of the card is selected, and if you find that you can't edit anything, nothing will move, nothing will change, that's probably because you have that layer locked. So keep an eye out in this particular spot right here. If this padlock tool is visible, or icon rather is visible, then that means that this layer is locked. If you unlock it, you'll be able to edit things. Typically what I do is whatever layer I'm not working in, if I hide it, I also lock it. And then I work with the side that's visible. Again, so I can switch back. Here's my front. I'll unlock it so I can work with it, and I'll lock the back. So that's how you switch back and forth between the two. There's different tools that you can use in here as well. So over here is just your main selection tool, your type tool. You can take the rectangle tool and you can draw a box if you want to. Oh, just to show you what I just did, I went to draw a box and it wouldn't work. That's because I have the back layer selected. If I want to actually draw something on this artboard or on this layer, I need to have that layer selected. Then I can draw on it. Let me just remove that. We don't need that. So you'll also notice, so there's your type tool, so you can select that and you can type stuff. But you don't necessarily have to choose the type tool to edit existing text. So you can simply double click on existing text and you can edit that text that way. You can grab an entire text box and you can move that around if you want to, or Control Z to put it back. Okay, so here's an artboard. This particular box right here, and let me make this more clear for you. Let me hide this. Okay, this is your artboard. So on any given layer that you're on, this is the artboard that you're working with. You can see your artboards by choosing this icon right here. This is your artboard tool. So this shows you have one artboard, and it's right there, front and center. If you choose this artboard icon, you can control the width and the height of the artboard to make it the exact width and height that you want it to be. When you export out a file, you choose File, Export, choose JPEG, use artboards. This is the key right here. Make sure this is selected. And I'm going to just choose artboard 1 because that's the one that we're working with. So whenever you export it out, and you can name your file front and back, whatever you want it to be named, but specifically make sure it says JPEG, use artboards, and choose your range as 1. And that's how you export out your front or your back. If you want to export out the back, again, hide the front, show the back, then export the back. All right, now let's see. Another thing I want to show you too is you can have notes for yourself on a part of the artboard that you don't use or that isn't going to be exported. So I have a note to myself that says export to JPEG, use artboards. It just gives me instructions on how to export out this file. So I can have notes all over this file if I want to. As long as it's outside of your artboard, you can have images out here that you might want to use later. You can have text that you might want to use later, notes to yourself. As long as when you export out, you're only choosing the artboard, then nothing outside the artboard is going to show when you export it out. Your character palette is pretty cool. This controls a lot of different things. Your font, the font weight, your line spacing, your font spacing. So just as a for instance, if I wanted to increase the line height on this particular paragraph of text, I would choose this box, and then I can increase or decrease that right here. So this is pretty cool. Let's see, another thing you can do is say I wanted to make this entire column bold. You can do that, just choose bold. But what if I just wanted to make like the first line bold? You can do that by double-clicking in this box, and then you can select it, highlight it, and then make just that line bold. Let's see, what else can you do in here? Another cool thing you can do too is with nothing selected, if you choose the space bar on your keyboard, then that creates this cool little hand, and then you can grab and you can move your artboard around if you want to. So you can, if you're not seeing the entire thing, like if you're zoomed in too far, for instance, and you want to move it so you can like really zoom into something, then you can move it and just zoom into that one little spot, which is, it comes in handy to be able to do that. And this is your zoom tool. You can zoom in and out right here. If I select this, by default, it's going to zoom in. But if I want to zoom out, just hit the Alt key, and it'll change that to a minus. See that? And then I can zoom out with that minus. And then again, I can move it around where I want it to go. So that comes in handy. I use that all the time. So that's your character palette. Your paragraph palette's also pretty cool because that controls, you know, if your paragraph is aligned left, if it's centered, if it's justified, and so on. So that's what that's for. Hyphenate comes in handy too, because if you have a whole paragraph of text and it's hyphenating on you and you don't want it to, just deselect that box and it won't hyphenate. So that's important. Again, make sure you have the bit of text that you want to control or edit, then change it over here. All right, so you know how to export, you know how to work with layers. Now, if you come into your layers palette and you see like all this open right here, and you're like, okay, where's my front and back? It's right here. See how this arrow is pointing down and it's showing you what's inside here? This is just each individual layer that's in this particular file, or that's in the front of this postcard. So I can just close that, and there's your front again. So it's pretty easy. So if you open the back, this is everything that's in the back. All the layers and all the elements that's in the back is right there. One more thing I want to show you is guides. So let me zoom out a little bit here so I can show you this. These blue lines here, these are guides, and you can turn these on and turn these off under window. So under Window, if I go into, let me see, let's see, links. I think maybe it's under View. It's under View. So under View, if I go to Guides, I can hide them, I can lock them, and I can remove them. So I like to lock them once I put them in place. So this one right here is my center guide, so I know that this is the absolute center of this postcard. So when I'm moving like my header around, I know that I want it centered. So let me just zoom in and show you that. So there's my heading, and it's centered right with that center guide. And if I lock these guides, no matter what I select, I can't move them. So as long as it's locked, View, Guides, as long as it's locked, I can't move them. See, I can't even touch it. But if I unlock it, then I'll be able to grab that and move it around, which you don't want to do because you always want your center one to stay in the center. So just be careful with that. You can also, you don't want to work with slices yet. Okay, another cool thing, let me zoom out here. And it wouldn't apply to this particular file because it's a postcard and it's being exported out to a JPEG. But if you were to export to a PDF, then you're going to want to export out your file with outlined fonts. Just to show you, you do that here under Type, and you outline your fonts here. So you're going to create outlines. You're not going to work with that in this one. Again, you're just exporting to a JPEG. You don't have to do that. But if you're working with a PDF, you do that here. Just make sure that you save an editable version of it. And you can even, take a layer and you can click right here and duplicate a layer. So so I have two fronts now, front copy and front. I can hide and lock one, and I can outline this one, for instance, and just export that. So that's how you do that. But always make sure that you save your Illustrator version. So if you're saving out a PDF, then your version is going to switch to PDF. Make sure that you always go back and save out your AI file again. So that's all the basics of working with your artboards, palettes, layers, and your tools. In the next video, I'll show you more about actually editing and exporting and saving out your file.